Greetings of peace and love, everybody. My name is Ram Hotep, broadcasting on behalf of 13SignsAstrology.com. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. On this particular episode, I'm excited to cover a group that I hold dear to me. And this group is not discussed too often. This group is not talked about. You go into the bookstore, you'll see 1,000 books on the Mayans. You'll see 1,000 books on the Egyptians. But you won't really see too much information on the Dogons. Now, there's one particular book that I can refer to you guys before I get into this information that is really good if you want to research the Dogon information. It's called The Serious Mystery. The Serious Mystery by Robert Temple. And that particular book is a really great book. But the Dogon are an interesting group. One of the most important groups as far as a tribe and a group of immortals on this planet or whatever when you talk about the Dogons, because the Dogons had a very accurate system and map of the universe. And not only an accurate system of the map of this universe, but they had a system of the map, of this galaxy, not just this galaxy, but they had a map of the galaxy that we came from, or what's called our matriarchal galaxy, which is our maternal galaxy, which is the galaxy that birthed our galaxy, which is the 19th galaxy. And the Dogons, and that's where Sirius is at. So the Dogons had thorough knowledge of the Sirius star constellations. They had a thorough knowledge of the Orion constellations, and they had a thorough knowledge of the planets in this solar system. And that's what makes the Dogons important, even when it comes to 13 signs astrology, because I have to, as an astrologer, have to take my hat off to them, because they really were the first group to even map out the outer planets. See, a lot of people don't realize that the Dogons were the first group to map out the outer planets. When you talk about Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, those are what's called outer planets. And the Dogons knew about those planets, and they didn't have any telescopes. So how could they have known about them? And I'm going to get into that in a minute. So that's what makes the Dogons really important tribe. I mean, they had Sirius mapped out. They knew about Sirius A and Sirius B way back then. And they knew that Sirius B was orbiting Sirius A. And a lot of people, I'm going to be doing a video on Sirius or whatever, but a lot of people don't really realize what Sirius A is and what Sirius B is. Like, Sirius A is a type of a star, and Sirius B is a certain type of a star. And the Dogons knew that the most densest matter came from Sirius. The matter on Sirius is more dense than the matter here. So on Sirius, a person would be 20 or 30 feet, whereas here they might only be 6, maybe 7 feet. That's a tall person, but a tall person on Sirius is 20 to 30 feet. On Sirius, they have more chromosomes as far as in their DNA structure or whatever. And when you talk about the shift, that's what we are eventually supposed to be shifting into. We're supposed to be becoming bigger and larger beings. So when you watch the movie, The Avatar, you watch that movie, that's what that movie's talking about. That movie's talking about Sirius and the beings on, a lot of it is talking about the beings on Sirius and Pleiades too as well. But that's going into your star heritage. See, people don't know the star heritage or how the Pleiadians got there, where did they come from. See, people talk about the Pleiadians, but where did the Pleiadians come from? And those are the things that you have to know, but I'm not doing a video on that, of course. But as far as the Dogons, they talked about, and they knew that we came from Sirius. Where did they learn this information from? Well, when the scientists went over there to talk to them, and they were like, we need to find out, like, how did you guys learn all of this? Like, how did you get these maps where Pluto, and you guys didn't even have a telescope. They didn't even discover Pluto until like 1930. We just discovered that, like, not even 100 years ago. The Dogons knew about it thousands of years ago. How did they learn this stuff? Easy. They learned it from extraterrestrials. And that's their explanation, not Ram Hotep's explanation. When the scientists were sent over to the tribe of the Dogons and they asked the Dogons, where did you learn this information from? The Dogons said that they showed them a picture. And they showed them a picture of what will look like what I would call a sham, or what would be called basically a disc-shaped craft or whatever. And they showed them a disc-shaped craft. And they were like, this is where we learned it from. And they showed them the craft landing in the water. And the beings came, like, the craft landed in the water. The beings got out of the craft in the water, and they talked to them and taught them from the waters. Because the Dogons taught that the reptilians would come from the waters at nighttime during what they would call shadow hour. And at nighttime, which you would call nighttime in modern day, but it's called shadow hour, they would come in, they would teach the Dogons. The reptilians would teach them from out of the waters, and they called them the Nomos, I believe. They were called the Nomos. The Nomos were the watery beings. These were reptilians. They looked like dolphin. They drew pictures of them. The Dogons drew pictures of them. These pictures are over 5, 6, 7. I mean, I know a good 7, 8 100 years old, but really even older than that or whatever. But they drew pictures of these particular beings or whatever, and of the particular crafts. I mean, it's deep. It's like really deep or whatever, because I mean, there I'm talking about dolphin, reptilian looking beings on 2 legs, humanoid looking beings, upright posture, but they're fish people, and that's what the nomos mean. They mean the fish people, because they had basically, the Dogons could only call them what they could see them as. They had to compare them to something in nature. And the only thing they could compare them to was like fish or reptiles or reptilians, or some of them were lizards. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the only image or depiction that they had. But these were actually the water creatures. The Dogon further go on and they taught us about the dolphins. So when I did that video and I talked about the dolphins, that came from the Dogons. And I read a comment, and I wanted to kind of point this out, because somebody said on the comment that the Dogons never taught about dolphins. And I'm like, obviously you haven't read the mysteries of the Dogons, because they have the pictures there. I mean, this stuff is clear. You know what I'm saying? It's out there. I'm not making this stuff up or whatever. And a lot of people, they like to attribute and say that, well, anytime you talk about this type of stuff, that you got it from like Dr. York or some other master or some other mystic. And people fail to realize that all the mystics and masters have to go and study from the same immortal sources. So all the different mystics and masters, and you know what I'm saying, the sages and all of these different people that come to you and teach, your prophets, they all had to go to the mystery school. So that's why the information always sounds similar. So those people out there that are like non-initiated or neophytes, they're like, oh, you got that from that person. Oh, you got that from that person, because they don't really know, because they're not initiated. So they don't really know the sources of different knowledge and information. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about the Dogons, a lot of information, I mean, they knew about the 3 suns, the 3-sun constellation in Sirius, Utu, Apsu, and Shemesh. And actually the Sumerians knew about it. They had names for it. Those were the 3 suns' names, Utu, Apsu, and Shemesh. It's right in the Sumerian text. But what happens is that when a lot of people go into those texts and they read them, they're translated. You have to remember that. If you don't understand the languages and know how to decode and know about history and can read the text from a historical background, a lot of people are lost. So like when I go into text and I read things, I'm like what's called a decoder, which I'll go into at another time, but I decode things. So I go into it and I read it from a perspective. I try to put the information that I'm reading out of these ancient texts in a perspective, in a culture. And even when you study the Egyptian culture, what you'll find out is that the Egyptian culture is a compilation of many different cultures. It's a compilation of the so-called Ethiopian culture, the so-called Sudanese culture, even the Dogon of Mali actually influenced and had influence in Egypt at one time. And really, the original Egyptians are those West Africans. Those are the original Egyptians. Those in Mali and Ghana and Senegalese and all that. Those are your true Egyptians that were pushed out. Your Ashanti tribe and all that. Those were your first original Egyptians that were pushed out, and they have the real mysteries. That's where the real mysteries are at. You know what I'm saying? It's nice. So people go to Egypt and they study, and that's cool, because Egypt still has the monuments and, you know, the way it was built. So certain alignments and things happen to take place when you go meditate in Egypt and stuff like that. So I understand that, but I'm talking about who originated, who built those things, and who has the knowledge still at this day and time of a little remnants of that knowledge is with the Dogon tribe. Most of it, believe it or not, the Egyptian mysteries lie with the Dogon tribe. Very, very, very deep tribe. Very deep tribe. They came from, like I said, they taught that the beings that taught them came straight from out of crabs, came from out the waters, and they taught them. And these were your reptilians, and they revered them as gods, and they sacrificed their daughters to them. You know what I'm saying? To these reptilians or whatever, for knowledge and information. And these reptilians taught the Dogons astrology. The Dogons were astrologers, master astrologers, and they taught them this information or whatever. It came via the reptilians. So when you start talking about Atlantis, all of that stuff can be sought after. You can learn a lot of that information from studying the mysteries of the Dogon. So I definitely, I mean, as a melanated being, I trace myself back to the Dogons. I mean, when you start talking about Sirius, you don't understand Sirius unless you study it from a perspective of the Dogon. You're not going to understand what's going on up there. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff going on in Sirius and a lot of history to be learned on Sirius, but you have to first look into the mysteries of the Dogon. So people wonder, like, well, where do you get certain information from? A lot of the information that I teach here on this channel, believe it or not, you can learn it through the Dogons or whatever. A lot of this information can be learned through the Dogons and different other tribal groups, which I'll be doing a lot of videos on different groups out there. But that was just my brief video on the mysteries of the Dogon. I thank you guys for listening. I thank you guys for watching. And until we meet again, I want to leave you all in peace.